When the last lock clicks open, how nuclear order ends not with a bang, but with a shrug. In the lexicon of arms control, endings are supposed to be tidy. Treaties expire, verification regimes wind down, diplomats issue statements heavy with regret and light on surprise. The passing of the New START Treaty on February 5, however, is not merely the conclusion of a legal document. It is the quiet termination of an entire philosophy of managing existential risk. The fact that this moment arrives not amid crisis but indifference is itself the story. If it expires, it expires. "We'll make a better deal," remarked Donald Trump in early January. The words were delivered with the confidence of a property developer walking away from a contract. Not the custodian of half the world's nuclear firepower. They also captured, in a single sentence, the spirit of a strategic age that no longer believes rules are safer than instincts. A treaty nobody loved, but everyone relied upon. New START was never glamorous. Signed in 2010, it capped deployed strategic warheads at 1,550 and delivery systems at 700 for each side. It pleased no one entirely. American hawks complained it legitimized Russian parity. Russian nationalists argued it froze inferiority. Arms control idealists lamented its modesty. Yet for all its imperfections, it performed a vital function. It forced transparency on adversaries structurally inclined to distrust one another. Inspectors counted missiles. Data was exchanged. Notifications were issued before deployments. The process was tedious, technical, and profoundly stabilizing. Nuclear peace, such as it exists, has always depended less on goodwill than on paperwork. That this system should end not because it failed, but because it survived the wrong president, is a telling commentary on how power is now exercised. Trump's theory of agreements, leverage over legacy. Trump's hostility to arms control is neither ideological nor ignorant. It is transactional. Agreements, in his view, are tools to extract concessions, not frameworks to manage shared risk. If an arrangement does not visibly advantage America, or, more precisely, does not appear to advantage America, it is suspect. This logic guided his withdrawal from the INF Treaty in 2019 and the Open Skies Treaty soon after. Both were dismissed as outdated, unfair, or violated by others. That New START lingered at all was largely because it had been extended in 2021 under Joe Biden, and therefore belonged to the category of inherited clutter. Trump does not dismantle institutions because he underestimates their value. He dismantles them because he believes value can be recreated later, on better terms, under pressure. Stability is not a goal, leverage is. Russia's paradoxical restraint. It is one of the ironies of this episode that Moscow appears, at least rhetorically, as the conservative party. Last September Vladimir Putin suggested that both sides could voluntarily adhere to New START limits even after expiry. This was framed not as charity, but as prudence, a way to prevent uncontrolled escalation. Russia's motives are hardly saintly. Its economy is strained, its conventional forces stretched, and its appetite for a costly nuclear expansion limited. Predictability, in this context, is a strategic asset. Yet restraint requires reciprocity. Washington's response, effectively, silence punctuated by Trump's bravado, suggests that America currently values freedom of action over mutual reassurance. China, the indispensable obstacle. Trump insists that any future arms control arrangement must include Trung Quoc. On paper, the demand is logical. China's nuclear arsenal is expanding, its missile silos multiplying, its strategic ambitions no longer deniable. Why preserve a bilateral framework in a multipolar world? The problem lies in scale and incentives. China's arsenal remains far smaller than those of America and Russia. Beijing sees no reason to cap its forces while the two nuclear superpowers retain vastly larger stockpiles. It also benefits from strategic ambiguity, adhering to a declared policy of no first use while avoiding intrusive verification. Trump is unlikely to be unaware of this reality, which makes the insistence on Chinese participation less a pathway to agreement than a convenient veto. If China refuses, responsibility shifts. America is absolved of inaction, the absence of a treaty becomes someone else's fault. The illusion of liberation, allowing New START to lapse, does not mean missiles will immediately proliferate. Nuclear weapons are expensive, maintenance-heavy and politically sensitive. Generals, for all their hawkish reputations, prefer predictability. The danger is subtler. Without legally mandated data exchanges, each side must infer the other's intentions through intelligence and assumption. Worst-case thinking becomes rational. Procurement plans grow heavier just in case. Arms control, once a brake, turns into an accelerant. This is not the hair-trigger instability of the Cuban Missile Crisis. It is something colder, a permanent strategic fog in which miscalculation becomes easier precisely because nothing dramatic appears to be happening. Europe's strategic spectatorship, for America's allies, particularly in Europe, the expiry of New START is another reminder of their dependency. Nuclear order is being dismantled by actors over whom they have little influence, in negotiations to which they are not invited, about weapons they do not possess. European leaders speak earnestly of strategic autonomy. Yet when the last pillar of nuclear restraint collapses, they are spectators. The continent that perfected arms control now watches it dissolve, unable to intervene. Arms control without believers. Arms control has always been a minority taste. It requires patience, technical literacy, and a willingness to accept limits. It flourished during the Cold War not because trust was abundant, but because fear was disciplined. Treaties were not acts of friendship, they were instruments of survival. Today, fear persists but discipline has eroded. Nuclear weapons are again spoken of casually, referenced, hinted at, normalized. What was once taboo has become rhetorical furniture. In this climate, New START's demise feels less like an aberration than an inevitability. The post-treaty world, what replaces New START is unlikely to be anarchy. More plausibly, it is a patchwork of unilateral restraint, informal signaling and occasional crisis management. The bomb remains central, the rules governing it do not. Trump believes a better deal will emerge from this vacuum. Perhaps one will. But history suggests arms control thrives not on bravado, but on mutual recognition of vulnerability. Without that, leverage becomes a gamble, and the stakes are measured in megatons. The quiet end of an era, there will be no ceremony marking New START's expiration. No flags lowered, no speeches delivered. The inspectors will simply stop traveling. The data will stop flowing. The world will notice little, at first, yet this is how orders end, not with catastrophe, but with neglect. By letting the last treaty expire. America is not choosing chaos. It is choosing uncertainty as a governing principle. For a negotiator who thrives on brinkmanship, that may seem reasonable. For a planet still living under the shadow of thousands of warheads, it is a strangely casual wager. The bomb endures. The rules do not.